Yo, what is up guys? It is Samool back again with another Epic 7 first impression video for a new unit that is coming out. And that unit is on your screen here doing this sick animation, and that is Roy Mustang. Now Roy Mustang will be running from September 1st till September 15th for 2 weeks, and he is part of the full Metal Alchemist collab, which is actually starting on the 25th of August, kicking off with the other unit from the collab that you can pull for Edward Elric. So Roy Mustang, like Edward, is a fire unit, although he is a mage, and he looks pretty insane, right? His animations are crazy. You guys saw from the first cutscene, and you're gonna see that his artwork is not the only thing that's insane. His kit looks pretty fun to play with, and he does have some, unique skills and buffs to himself as well, and there's even some lore tied into some of his skills in Epic 7, which actually is pretty cool. You don't really see that too much, right? So let's get into his base stats real quick. The first thing you're gonna notice right away is this guy has crazy attack stat. He has one of the highest attack stats in the game, although he is pretty squishy, but you're gonna see with his passive that it is fine that he's a bit squishy. His speed is pretty average, and he does not have any crit chance, crit damage, or effectiveness from his awakenings, so you can tell he's probably a pure damage dealer, right? Looking at his imprint as well, he is getting attack either for his team or for himself, and if he is a huge damage dealer, you're most likely going to want to put him on that imprint concentration. He is of the Leo Zodiac, so if you guys want to get ready to pull for him and also be able to enhance him right away, then make sure you guys prepare your Leo catalysts. That being said, let's look at his skills. So we're going to start off with his S2. You're going to see at the start of the first battle, it is a passive skill. He gains 40 fighting spirit, so he does use a fighting spirit mechanic, and will grant himself Flame Alchemist. Now Flame Alchemist will increase his hit chance and his attack by 20%. So the hit chance is very nice against units that have dodge built in, or even against ice units, right? So against like violets, you have a higher chance to hit. Against ice units, you have a higher chance to hit. Instead of just that 50%, it will be 70%. And that 20% attack buff is very nice, because if we look back at his base attack, that 20% attack on other units is not as much as Roy Mustang is getting himself, because that will scale with his base attack. So that 20% attack is insane for him. Now the funny part about this is that this Flame Alchemist cannot be dispelled unless he's attacked by an ice enemy. And if you guys have watched Full Metal Alchemist, you will know that he is weak to humidity and water, right? I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is a thing about that. So there is some lore tied in, which is pretty cool. You're also going to see the secondary effect here. Damage suffered in one attack does not exceed 70% of max HP. If you max this out, it is similar to Tempest Cern and Spirit Eye Selene. It will go to 51%. So even though he's very squishy, as you saw with his base HP, you can build him on full damage, similar to Spirit Eye Selene and Tempest Cern are built, if you guys are familiar with those units, and you will be able to actually last very long in the battle if you have units around him, right? Fall and Cecilia barriers will work on it. Aros's barrier works on this, right? If you just have healing with your team, then you can help him sustain. Maybe even a lifesteal set could work on him as well, similar to Spirit Eye Selene and Tempest Cern, maybe, right? Now, actually, let's look at his animation. Sorry, I did not mean to skip that. But you're going to see, Ice unit is hitting. Actually, it's not really an animation because it's a buff, but you're going to see it gets dispelled because he is weak to that. So that buff got dispelled. So wow, sick animation of losing your buff, I guess. Now we're going to see his S3. His S3 is going to consume 80 fighting spirit, right? Keep in mind he does have that fighting spirit here. I guess we're going into his animation first, but yeah, it's a really cool one where he snaps his fingers and boom. But yeah, what it actually does is it does a lot of damage, right? So he's also going to give himself attack buff for 2 turns and then attack. So he does an AoE attack, and then he will also grant himself Flame Alchemist to himself if he lost it previously. It's basically just a damage dealing ability. There's nothing else to it, but when there are 3 or fewer enemies, you will do more damage. So I apologize for going back and forth with the cutscene here, but you're gonna see here that the damage is insane. There's 3 enemies, right? And it is doing, you can see, about 17.6k to Violet and 11k to A Robbie. That's a lot of damage, and the attack buff is the one that he granted to himself, and if there's even less enemies, it'll do even more. So it looks very strong, especially in Guild Wars where it's always going to be 3 units, and if you do have that Flame Alchemist buff to yourself, right, you're going to do even more damage. So very, very powerful. This has no cooldown, you just need to generate Fighting Spirit, and with your S2, you're going to be starting with 40. Now the way you actually generate that Fighting Spirit is going to be with your S1. So your S1 here, it is going to give you 30 fighting spirit, so it gives you a lot. And what it is a single target attack that will increase your CR by 15%. And when you use it on your turn, if you do have that Flame Alchemist active, that is given to you at the start of the battle or from your S3, you're going to activate Heat Wave. So Heat Wave is a single target attack that will see our push yourself by double the amount, but this will also penetrate the target's defense, and this cannot trigger a dual attack. You can also soul burn this to generate another extra 30 fighting spirit, although it will cost you 20 souls because you can always take that extra turn, right? So a good combo would be like maybe, soul burn on the second turn that you play with him, and you could ignite into his S3 and do a lot of damage. So you're going to see his S1 actually does pretty decent damage. I think it's going to be over here, right? So we're going to see this is his S1 with that Heat Wave. 12k damage, right? Because it penetrates that defense. Not too bad. Looks pretty decent. Looks pretty strong. So yeah, he's a pure damage dealer, so that is good and bad, right? You definitely are going to need a lot of units to support him because of his S2, right? You're going to need like barriers and healing, or even maybe run him on lifesteal, but you kind of want speed as well, just because of the fact that you want to generate fighting spirit. Might even run him on counter. It's just kind of weird. I feel like his kit is a little bit weird because usually units with this much damage should have some sort of sustain or utility, right? Tempest Cern has that stealth with the damage reduction so that she can survive longer. Spirit Eye Celine works very well with lifesteal and has that utility with her S3. Roy Mustang is a pure damage dealer. It's kind of weird with his S2 passive because all he does is do damage, right? So the kit does seem a little bit weird, so I don't think he'll be super broken. Definitely not as strong as Edward. I think Edward will be a ton stronger because he just looks broken, but I think Roy will be situationally good, especially if the enemy doesn't have a way to actually take care of him pretty quickly, because it looks like in longer fights he'll just be able to dish out a lot of damage. So although I think you should pull for him no matter what, because he is a collab unit, I think Edward is a much higher priority, and luckily Edward comes before Roy does. So let's look at Roy's artifact. This is Ignition Cloth Gloves. These are his gloves from the anime. You're going to see that it is going to be a hit chance and attack buff. Nothing too crazy. This is nice because it's kind of like a symbol of unity for mages. So I guess if you are running units like Milim, right, then you can run her on this instead. You don't have to waste your symbol of unity on Milim because she's mostly a counter pick. You could also obviously use this on Roy Mustang because the hit chance is nice to hit the ice units that people are going to bring into him to counter him, and that attack buff will benefit him very greatly because of his base attack. So I think this artifact, nothing too crazy. Just think of it as like another symbol of unity basically. But yeah, looks pretty cool. I think the artwork is insane for this as well. So generally, my general consensus for this unit, guys, is that he looks very fun, does a crap ton of damage. Looks like he needs a team comp around him, but I don't think he'll be like super OP. I think he'll be usable, definitely fun to use, especially if you are bringing him into lower damage team comps. But like as a early pick in World Arena, it's pretty hard to see anyone really using him unless you use him as a counter pick. Maybe in Guild Wars he'll be very strong because of his S3 doing a ton of damage to when there's less units. But for now, I think that until I test him out, it's hard to say that he'll be very strong. You still want to pull for him though because he's a collab unit, but definitely prioritize building your Edward first. His artifact looks pretty good as well. I think I'll pull for it just because you can use it as a symbol of unity replacement. You kind of need to max it out for that hit chance though, which is the only bad thing, but still, nonetheless, artwork looks pretty cool. That being said, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I think Roy, is a pretty cool unit, but I don't think he's nearly as good as Edward. Even the artifact's not nearly as good as Edward's, but that being said, see you guys next time, and I hope to see you guys in one of my live streams as well soon. Peace.